No, I was just starting it. No one seemed to be coming out, so thought I'd get it. Okay. You want to finish it? The webcast has started.
Yeah.
The other ones are running out. Okay. Okay. Here are your sheets. Emily brought them to you. Is there anything else on the other side?
I don't know.
Okay.
I was just going to my room. Hi, how are you? Okay, I figured. Perfect. Okay.
Sorry, I'm proceeding here in like 10 minutes. So while so is that it? Sure. No. Yeah. You know, I think I was originally trying to Hi, how are you? Terrific, thanks. And this little on the left side of it. And this is for the secret. You want my place? Okay. Okay. Maybe nervous because I didn't bring my computer. And that's it. It should be. Hopefully. Hopefully.
Not working?
Not working.
Could you restart the slideshow?
Sure.
See, it won't advance the slides here. So,
Okay.
Frozen.
no, it's not.
There you go. Let's go. Good. Sweet.
Maybe because they're recording it, it won't let.
Yeah, we're doing
Yeah,
Okay.
it won't advance. So I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm thinking maybe you have to start PowerPoint or something,
You have to start the PowerPoint?
or restart the PowerPoint.
Okay, we could do that. I just went ahead and started the broadcast, but we
Okay.
can exit back out.
It's here.
There we
There you
go.
are.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it. Wow.
All right, thank you so much.
So gotta be married. Yeah. Yeah. Helps all my life.
All right, now
That's cool.
it's.
Check.
We're done. I know. We're done.
Hey, Al. Mr. Lewis. How are you, my friend?
I'm not touching it.
Have you wrapped enough? I'm not too sure if that's an issue.
Yeah.
I don't know, figure this out.
So it's never been fixed. They didn't have it on the out. You know, I noticed that it needed to be.
Not touching.
Is this strategic?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
As long as they don't take pictures somewhere. Yeah, I know.
Services.
You should see.
Oh, really? Yeah, right.
Turn it on.
Hey, Ben, send me an email.
Yeah, I sure will.
Oh.
The clicker is working. So I just.
Testing 1, 2. You guys.
Were you sitting in the keynote? Well, different.
No, power.
So I told my
What are you doing?
Oh my goodness.
Go.
I know, that was quite something. Location recovery.
Well, right.
Yeah, and then my husband got out on the West Coast. So I had to start it on the
Sorry, but.
14 years ago.
I mean, I was ready to go in the business. Let's get some.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Nice to get on.
Oh, yeah.
John.
Apparently I picked the right session to join.
Yes, so, great.
Did you watch my book for a second around the restaurant? Or second, the line today.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Just a couple of housekeeping reminders. When education concludes today, please join us in the welcome reception, sponsored by Entry System. It will be held inside the exhibit hall. Make sure to grab a door prize raffle card on your way into the exhibit hall. People will be doing this. The door prize drawing will take place at 6:45 and you must be present today. Literally, like, we hand out TVs, like, people bring the coolest prizes, so don't miss it. It happens every expo, people aren't there and they win, so. Also, sign-in sheets will be passed around, so don't forget to write your name on those, so you can get an accurate count of attendance. If you're seeking continuing education credit, please be sure to scan the QR code on the sign-in sheet and complete the survey. And then certificates of attendance will be emailed next week. So real quick, our sponsor for this education section is Pioneer Biomedical, and they're going to say a few words, and then Al Gresch is going to present his session on strategic approach to developing and ensuring enjoy.
We don't last
So yeah, I got to do it Pioneer. We're a small company in Kansas City, fusion pump rentals and patient monitor rentals. We're not the biggest company, but we put out about people in here, so I'd say thank you for that. Just wanted to say thank you for all the violence over the past year and a half. It's not been easy on you guys. I know a lot of the doctors, nurses, clinicians got all the credit on the news for all the hard work they did throughout COVID, but they wouldn't be able to do anything without you guys. So just wanted to take that opportunity to thank you for all that you guys do. Southwest would not operate without you all. Thank you for that. We had a booth out here at 5 to 7 yard Chiefs fans, so maybe periodically checking score tonight. We do have barbecue sauces with Kansas City, so feel free to stop by and treat you at all. So, but yeah, just a small monitoring company. Happy to help you if you can. So, this is my second time introducing Al. Still really good to go. So, good luck. All right.
Thank you very much.
So I know quite a few people here. For those of you who I haven't met yet, Al Gresch, Vice President of Healthcare Strategy for Accruent. Spent most of my career working in the industry, 34 of which was at Aurora Healthcare, running a very successful in-house program and a $26 million year budget for the 50 hospital system, which is actually pretty small when you consider we had probably close to 70,000 assets. We did everything in-house, including CT, MRI, literally everything except for the Gamma Knife, the Cyber Knife, and the surgical robots. But everything else we did. So pretty proud of the fact that we were, like I said, around 4% cost of service ratio. But I've always been someone who was looking for more. The recommendation I would make to people is don't ever say no to anything. The correct response is, sure, I'll do that, whatever that is, as long as I have the resources I need to do it correctly, which means the financial and the human resources that you need, right? So that'll be a little bit of what we talk about today. But one of the things that I really felt we had a tremendous opportunity to jump into was capital replacement planning. Like most HTM departments, we didn't always have a voice in what was bought, and so we had a bunch of stuff that should have been replaced that wasn't replaced. We had things that were bought that there were other things that should have been much higher priority. And I could have sat in the basement and bitched about it, or I could have got myself a seat at the table and gotten involved. And so that's what I chose to do. I'll walk through what the process is for getting that seat at the table. I will tell you this, that the groups that do a great job of using data to support what they need and why they need it are typically the ones that get the money, okay? And so I always recommend too that you start with the modalities that have the greatest impact, which is imaging. Okay, that's where most of the capital dollars go. And it's where you have a chance to make the biggest impact as a starting point. And so in every organization that I was in, where I did implement this process, that's where I started. I'm going to show some background information that came from ProHealth. They were supposed to be the ones presenting this, but the ProHealth extended their travel ban, so they weren't able to be here. And because Rob Lundberg used to work for me, and essentially they put together pretty close to the same program that we had in Aurora, who thought that I could effectively do this. Hopefully I can. Okay, so the things that we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about the common workflows and pain points. I'd like this to be interactive, so I'll probably ask you all questions throughout. If you have questions, feel free to jump in and ask me. I'll talk about the benefits, both short-term and long-term. How going down the path will help you develop deeper relationships with your executive leadership. I'll cover how to go about doing this, and it all starts with data integrity. I'm still somewhat shocked today how many people don't have good data to support what they're doing. The thing that I work for Accruent, and I talk at many both company-sponsored events and events like this, and I'm shocked at how few people, or how many people still don't have an AEM program in place. And I ask them why. What's getting in the way of you implementing the AEM program? I mean, I know you don't have enough staff to do everything that needs to be done. Here's an opportunity for you to do more with less. Why wouldn't you do that? Well, because we don't feel as if we have the data to support our decisions to move away from manufacturing recommendations. Okay, let's start getting the data. Okay, it's the same thing here. You have to have the data to support doing this type of program. Data standardization, so that things mean the same thing everywhere, and you've got consistency throughout the data set. I'll walk through the assessment methodologies that were done at 3 different places. I'll show you at ProHealth, assessment methodology, what I had done at Aurora, and then again at Lexington Health System. So I'll show you 3 different samples. And then lastly, we talked about additional analyst staff. When I present stuff like this, people look at me like I've got 3 heads, and they're like, I can't even get done what I need to get done. What's right in front of me? How can you expect me to take on something like this? And I don't expect you to do that. What I expect you to do is put together a business plan that shows what you need in order to make this happen, and then take it to your finance people and present the plan. And I'll tell you, the rewards will pay for this position 10 times over, okay? But you have to have the data to make your pitch. And then I'll show some results of some of the stuff that we brought out of these programs. And I do understand that I'm the one thing standing in between all of you and free drinks. So if we end up running a little bit short on time, that'll be why.
Don't hold it against you.
That's right. Okay, common capital allocation workflows and pain points. I'll describe for you what I typically see, and you all call out if I'm off base, because I've had this discussion with many, many people in there. It's still like this, yep, it's exactly how it is by us. So capital budget time comes around, and every clinical department manager is compelled to deliver their wish list, okay? So they'll reach out to you folks, say, what do I need? Maybe they'll do that. They don't always do that, right? Sometimes they just put stuff together based on who knows what. Well, I do know what. A lot of times it's what the physicians want, right? Okay. And then they'll put that list together. They'll submit the list. So nowadays it probably goes into some repository like Strata, or we used Coffin Call, one place where it's at. But all that stuff goes in there. That's not a capital planning tool. It's a repository. It's a way to collect all of that stuff and then, do what you need to do. But then what happens is the finance people will review that. Sometimes there's a capital committee that helps make those decisions and prioritizations. Sometimes not. And I've talked to a great number of CFOs who told me, I have to go by what they presented because I don't know what else to do. I have no information to refute what they're telling me. So often what it comes down to is whoever makes the floweriest presentation or whatever physician yells the loudest, they're the ones that get the money, right? Is that pretty much how it works everywhere? There's another thing here. In every single case, what gets allocated to capital is based on what your margins were, what your profits were from the year before, okay? And they're broken out into 3 buckets versus strategic. So if there's a new service that your organization wants to bring about, that's strategic. They want to put up a building or renovate something, that's strategic, okay? The second bucket is recurring capital. So that's where all equipment comes into play, right? All replacement. There's a whole other thing that's I find so interesting that I talk about in another section, which is that finance's perception is that for every new piece of equipment that gets purchased, same number of devices get retired in inventory. That never happens. Never. I average 10% inventory growth year over year. Right? So I'll show you why that's important to call out. So, like I said, the second bucket is recurring capital, and then the third bucket is contingency, right? So if stuff breaks down during the course of the year, can't be repaired, I better have some money to take care of that. But if you don't plan well and understand what needs to be replaced for what reason, that contingency bucket tends to, or it has to be bigger than it would be if you did plan appropriately. Does that make sense? Okay. So, challenge is calculating ROI and getting the true cost of ownership. So, it becomes what they buy, they don't always understand the true cost of ownership. That's where you can come in and help them understand. The data that they do have, if they have any, is not always clean or accessible. And going back to what I said, because they don't have any data to refute what's being asked for, they have a great deal of difficulty prioritizing and understanding the trade-offs, okay? And what I see, especially with COVID, there wasn't the same amount of money as was in years past, so they're asking questions like, what if I sweat my turned inventory for a couple of more years, right? But what they don't understand is what the impact of that would be, both financially and clinically, right? So once again, by having a comprehensive capital planning program in place, you resolve that, okay? Selecting equipment takes time and effort. Think about this for a minute. How much time all of that clinical leadership spent, all the time that finance spent, all the time that supply chain spends in this process, versus if I had a report that was generated based on what should be replaced based on objective criteria. And I said, here, these are the things that should be replaced. Do you agree with it or don't you? Okay. It flips that whole thing on its head, and the amount of time that needs to be spent in the entire process is greatly reduced, and a lot of time and money can be saved. So what benefits can I garner from doing this today? Again, capital planning is based on technological guidance and support. You have a set of objective criteria. I'll walk through what some of the different criteria was that was used. It's an unbiased analysis based on requirements, not wishes. Okay? So again, when I walk through the set of criteria, what I always recommend, if you're starting up a program like this, sit down at the table with your CFO or your COO or whoever is making those decisions and agree on the criteria right up front. Agree what the weighting is if you have a scoring methodology up front. Because then when you present the report, there's no dispute over the validity of the numbers because you agreed on what those were going to be up front. Okay, make sense? Okay. Administrative awareness to operational and strategic impacts. When I show you the reports that I generated at Aurora that showed executive leadership, the status of our inventory related to age, related to technology, state of technology, they were in shock. They're sitting there looking at these numbers like, how did we get here? Well, how we got here is nobody was paying any attention to this stuff. Y'all were going out buying the sexy, shiny new toy, and all of this stuff was getting older and older and older, and now we're in the place that we're in. And I can't tell you how powerful that is to raise that level of awareness so that that doesn't happen, right? That they'll become acutely aware of what the status of your inventory is, because, you know, it's the pay me now or pay me later thing, that eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to have significant capital expenses in front of you that you haven't prepared for. Okay? Advocacy for delivery of care and appropriate technologies. Had a discussion with a customer a few months ago about a platform that we developed, and I asked what the current capital initiatives were. And his response was, well, this year we're going to commit to replacing all of our monophasic defibrillators. What? It's 20 years ago that ACC said that you should get rid of all of your monophasics and replace them with biphasic. It's like, note to self, do not ever get sick in that state. Anyway. And then a vital analysis for equipment planning and construction. And you all are well aware of this too. When there's a building going up somewhere, they may be buying new stuff for that. When there's a closet full of the same stuff that's only a couple of years old that they could use, or worse, they're planning to move a bunch of stuff, existing stuff, over into that shiny new building that is on its last leg, right? And so you need, you know, if you've got this data, it could play into that situation as well and prevent people from making really, really bad decisions. In the future, having a long-range capital replacement plan, system-wide 5-year capital plan, and drive standardization and plan participation group by opportunity. Let me give you an example of what kind of an impact this can have. So when I was at Allocation Brothers, I was the vice president of capital services. So we did the contracting for all new purchases. We did purchase service contracting. I had responsibility for clinical engineering, and we had an equipment disposition program in place. But the first year I was there, we had a cath lab on the capital replacement docket. One lab. And so I went to the director of cardiology, Noel. I said, Noel, we have 9 labs in our system. He goes, yeah. I said, my assumption is that at some point you're going to want to standardize on all these labs, right? But yeah, absolutely. I float people back and forth between hospitals all the time. And you know, if they know one system, they'll know both systems, right? Or all of the systems. So I said, okay. Well, then I'm not negotiating for one lab. I'm negotiating for 9. Okay? Whoever gets the business for this first lab gets them all, right? So at the end of the day, not only did I get phenomenal pricing on all of those labs, I ended up with a free lab out of the deal. Do you know how many millions of dollars that translated into in savings? That's just from one deal, okay? Imagine if you've got that same kind of visibility over everything, right? So instead of just having this, you know, this point solution thing is what's right here in front of me right now, looking at your capital replacements, you have visibility over all of it, where it sits in its life cycle, right? And even if you don't replace them all, because nobody's got the money to replace everything, but you can still negotiate for all of them and then just break them out over the course of several capital years, right? So I talked about the benefits, but I also talk about the relationships with executive leadership. What kind of relationship capital do you think that I acquired through that cat life?
They kissed your boots.
Yeah. and here's the thing too. It extends beyond just executive leadership. So we alluded to it earlier, the relationship that exists between physicians and vendors, right? And so that was part of this too. I knew that, and the cardiologist told me, he said, we want Siemens. I said, that's fine. I said, I want what you want, right? If I end up shoving some technology down your throat that's not something you want, I'm never going to hear the end of it, right? You're not going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy. My boss isn't going to be happy. But I said, here's the thing. What if I can get you what you want at a 25 to 30% discount of what you would have paid otherwise? Think of all of the stuff that you want that you can't get because you don't have the money to buy it. So if I can get that kind of savings, right, then that gives you much more capital to buy other things. So I said, just work with me here. Tell Siemens that you're more than willing to look at Toshiba or Philips or GE, okay? Just do that. I'll still get you what you want, but it made a huge difference, okay? So it's, you know, you can really impact this whole process through building those relationships. Okay, so let's take a look at the assessment methodologies so you can understand what kind of data structure that you need to contain. So this is from ProHealth, and they make their replacement decisions essentially 3 criteria. One is age, one is utilization, and one is the level of technology. Okay. Now you can see the way that they do it. If you look at this, these 3 columns of replacement cycle, they'll take a device. So in this case, it's a CT, and if it's a CT that a high level of utilization, they'll set it up as a 10-year replacement cycle. Okay. An average utilization, 11 years, and low utilization, 12. Okay. So I mean I'm not arguing whether it's the right way or wrong way. That's just how they set it up. So that's how they incorporate those that criteria. And then on the right, you'll see the life cycle stage. Is it new technology? Is it in that phase of technology where it's in its useful life? Is it in the stage where it's end of useful life? So you've got an end of life for the manufacturer, but you can likely still get parts on the third-party market. And there's a lot of people here at the Expo Hall that will help you with that. Or is it extended life? And I did it, I'll show you, it is a very similar thing where, in that fourth category, it was, if this thing breaks down, there's no fixing. I can't get parts from anywhere in the world, and you better cough up some serious dollars to replace it. Okay? And you'll see here where they started was imaging. So every one of these modalities are all modalities. And to date, they haven't progressed beyond that. And I did the same thing at Aurora. And I'll show you what that criteria was. Good of an eye chart. I'll do my best to explain this. And these are available slides that's available to you. Okay. But age was one of them. So here's just a listing, the hospital and the modality, but then what its age was, and we compared that to age useful life, and then reported out 80%. And then the three other criteria that we used very similar to what Pro did was appropriate level of technology. And so the definition there was either it exceeds the appropriate level of technology, it's on target, or it's below. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with a company called SG2. I think they were purchased recently by Vizient, but that was an organization that actually did that kind of analysis on different types of equipment. That was our source for determining whether that item is at the appropriate level of technology. It's always good if you have a standard to point to, right? But then you're not just pulling this stuff out of somewhere. So that was one criteria, and then capacity utilization. These were numbers that we got straight from the radiology department. And again, this was all radiology equipment. And so, it's really hard to read this, but what it gives you here is percent utilization. That's normal for these different modalities, so CT, MRI, X-ray, ultrasound, interventional radiology. And then the last one was market growth opportunity. Once again, we got that information from S32. What are the trends in the use of that particular type of modality, or increasing, decreasing, staying the same? This was the assessment methodology that I just said at Westinghouse, but it's probably the most extensive. But it lends itself to a very, very specific scoring methodology. And so the first group was on serviceability. And so the different factors that went into that, the first was age. And so if it was 0 to 65% of useful life according to age, its real age versus age gives in useful life, it would get a score of 0. If it was 65 to down, this changed when I was at Aurora. It was 65 to 100% of useful life, and higher than 100% would be that higher score. When I went through the Lexi run this, and again, doing what I recommended, which is to sit down with the finance people and agree on the weightings. She said, I don't want to see anything that's less than 150%. And so we changed the scoring to reflect that. The second would be service costs versus purchase costs. So the 0 to 25% cost, we got one score, 26 to 50, another score, 51 to 75, another score, 75% higher. Now, I'll caution you on this particular thing, because when it comes to CTs, you've got this kind of expensive piece of glassware, which is essentially a consumable, right? You're replacing that tube that costs, I don't know, $100 to $150,000 every 12 to 18 months, right? And so you're gonna hit that higher percent of acquisition costs a lot faster than you would with any other modality. So there are some qualifiers with that. So I just wanted to warn you about that. The next is service events. And for each modality grouping that we had, there was normal service based on our history. There was increasing service. So you're starting to see a trend of the number of service events creeping up. And then there's extensive service. So this thing's just absolutely eating our lunch from a service perspective. And when you think about that, it isn't just the cost of the repair. There's cost to downtime, right? It impacts clinical staff productivity. It impacts patients. So, you know, I think that's a very important thing to look at and include in your scoring criteria. And then the last category in serviceability was support capability. And the first category of service support is fully available. And then just like Pro Health and Aurora, you reach that category where it's at applied input, still get after the parts. And then the last one were parts no longer available. And then the next section was functional risk. And you know, this certainly can be updated because this was done back in like 2013. But we felt that it was important to understand the type of equipment it was, where it was used, and the functional risk associated with it, because those things that are life support should get higher priority than those that are just general care. Right? And then we incorporated the probable clinical impact. So a number of considerations here. First, no impact. Second, there's a standardization thing, and that's driving. And I think that's important, you know, mostly from a staff competency perspective. Think about a nurse responding to a code, and by the way, I had this happen where patient died because they couldn't convert this patient because the nurse didn't know how to use the defibrillator. That's not a good situation. And so, you know, there are certain things that where you should drive standardization. That would be a factor. Something that would impact service mission will get a higher score, and the highest score would be that it limits patient because this device just doesn't do it from the standpoint. And we looked at probable financial impact. Again, no impact to lost revenue potential, to increased operating costs, and then potential for limits revenue potential, increased operating costs, and then potential loss. And these are things that you don't do in a vacuum. So like the stuff, the clinical impact, I had discussions with those folks on that stuff. The financial impact as well. And then technology level, just like the Pro Health is leading technology, current technology, aging technology, or obsolete technology. And then we incorporated safety for regulatory risk. I think back to the situation that happened, I guess it's quite a few years ago now, with the stair system ones. Did anybody plan to replace those? No. Did everybody have to replace those? Yes. So, with that, it was either a 0 or a 20. So if you had that type of a situation, we wanted to push that thing up toward the top. And then last was technology. So it considers compatibility for technology. So let's say, for instance, that your organization has an initiative to tie all of whatever anesthesia machine, pick a modality to your EMR, right? But half of the fleet doesn't have the capability to do that standalone, right? So those are the kinds of things that you would need to assess from a technology initiative perspective. Any questions on any of this? Is that, yeah.
Just a question about filling out this assessment. Was that more of a manual process at the beginning?
Oh my God, yes it was.
I just wonder what ways you did to automate this. Because we have a similar process, but very manual. So I'm just trying to think how we should get better at this.
Remember that tool I was talking about called Data Insights? When I get to the end, that's the easy button. But I got to be careful that I don't make this a sales pitch. But here's what I will say. For you to do something like this over and above what your day job is would be a ridiculous expectation. Okay? But the person that I had doing all of this for me at Lexington Brothers, I had a dedicated analyst. That's what they did. Okay? But like I said, when I presented to my finance team what opportunities there were to impact purchases, to drive standardization, to negotiate by volume, right? I guarantee you that we paid for that position 10 times over. It wasn't in that hard of a sell if you go with a good business plan, right? So what equipment data do you need? So again, based on these things done at different places. Equipment demographics, which is this stuff you should have in your CMMS anyway, right? Control number, type, manufacturer, model, serial number, application, purchase information, etc. One thing I would add to that now is security information, right? Security vulnerabilities. Because, boy, if you aren't capturing that stuff, I mean, that should be part of your replacement plan as well. If you got a fleet of equipment that has within it some significant vulnerabilities that put your organization at risk, man, that could cost you a ton of money. I'm aware of an organization that got hit with some ransomware recently. It's been 2 months and they're still recovering. We get emails from them through a dedicated Gmail account because that's how far reaching this went. It's shutting down their system. I mean, it can have a huge impact. And we should all be aware of the fact that while the pandemic is going on, the bad actors were very, very busy figuring out ways to you need to have HAS, useful life, service histories. And I had a discussion with somebody yesterday who was telling me that, and I certainly got on Friday, that they still have a number of their technicians who don't put stuff in the database, like the hours spent and the parts replaced. I'm like, you've got to get it. You have to have this stuff, even if it's not for capital planning purposes, right? I had some very crucial conversations with folks on my team about this exact thing. That they were pushing back on doing documentation. Comments like, boy, what do you want me to do? Take care of my customers or do my paperwork? Like, well, I need you to do both. Okay. Let me make this as clear as I possibly can. In this organization, it is a condition of employment. Life's about choices, my friend. You either document your work or you don't work here anymore. It's that simple. You know why? Because I can't take the chance that I lose one of my team members because I can't justify the staff I have because you won't do your paperwork. Can't happen. Okay? I know I sound pretty passionate about that, but I am passionate about it. You can't allow that kind of stuff to go on. You just can't. And I mean, if you went to work for an OEM doing field service, do you think they'd allow you to get away with that? No. If you went to work for an ISO, do you think they'd let you get away with that? No. Anyway, OEM support information. So, you should have, when you get those letters, that should be part of your database. And then equipment functional risk, which you have to have that. So, this was the equipment scoring. The Allocation model, serviceability was a max value of 13, equipment functional risk a max value of 10, probable clinical impact, maximum value of 17, probable financial impact, maximum value of 16, technology level, maximum value of 14, safety regulatory risk, max value of 20, and technology initiative, max value of 10. And then we set a threshold for an aggregate of those different things. And if it exceeded 60, if it exceeded 50 to 50, 60, go, and low is 40 now. I know that the numbers seem a bit beyond that, but the first year we didn't include the clinical impact and financial impact. So, but in progressive years, that the scale went from 0 to 100. But and again, I covered these factors, so I'm not going through those again. But just here's an example of that piece of it, and where it showed up on the master spreadsheet. Okay, so now I'm going to go through the results. What some of the outputs of all this look like. So this is ProHealth modeling. It's actually pretty cool because if I'm a manager or director, I can plug in. I have access to this. I can plug in my name, my facility, in my department. A lot of these folks have responsibility for multiple departments, but I can select the ones that I specifically want to get. And it'll give me a quick view inventory for what's there. And then, based on that, the plan inventory quick view. So again, based on the criteria that I showed earlier, these are the things that float to the top. Okay. And they'll have a listing of what those things are, what the estimated cost is, thousands, and then what the anticipated or recommended replacement budget year is for that. Similarly, they'll get retired inventory quick view. Okay, so it's actually same information. With the status and actual retired date. And this is the entire spreadsheet going back to what you call out or very, very manual process of development. But again, they have a dedicated analyst. That's what she does. She works very closely with the finance folks, right? And every year she presents them with this report. Okay? So again, this is how all the stuff with, what the age of it is, visualization, and they've got these color blocks that will help them do a quick visual of the thing that radio or it's supposed to be like. The things that need to be replaced, again, with the cost, and then, how many are going to be needing to be replaced in each fiscal year. And then there's some notes on each one of these spreadsheets further down. And then they have this actual aggregate budget spreadsheet by budget year. So for 21, 22, 23, for total 5 years long total budget dollars. And then some rationale for those things that are being recommended. Just something that will give the finance folks something to go back to and understand. Oh, okay, that's why we're replacing this. Okay. Does that all make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go through these pretty quick. So at Aurora, we have a report that included projected budget costs summarized by facility and modality, cost breakdown by site, a life cycle. This is one of the things that really opened up some eyes for folks, is to show at each of the different sites, here's the percent that are inventory in the state of the art. Here's the percentage of our inventory in each of those sites that's useful life. Here's the percentage that's end of life. And the percentage is obsolete. You get like 10% of your inventory that's obsolete. Boy, that should open some eyes, don't you think? Budget by modality, and like I said, we did it just like we started out with imaging, that would be my recommendation. Just to start there and put all this. Again, emergency scanning, appropriate technology. And then just like Phil Health did, we had some notes in here with rationale as to why this should be replaced. And then some summary statistics. And these are things that were identified for replacement or upgrade. I don't know, how many of you have done forklift upgrades, imaging equipment?
What is that? Forklift upgrade?
It's like a complete rebuild of it, where the only thing, you refer to imaging equipment as big iron. Well, literally, that's all they're using is the framing, the big iron, and everything else from like the glassware, the electronics, everything's like brand new, like you would get off of one of the brand new systems. Okay. So when you do something like that, it could be a fraction of the cost of buying something brand new.
Because there's less construction costs?
Yeah, I mean, all of them, right? So, I mean, especially if you're strapped for dollars, these days, take a look at that as an option. And sometimes just upgrading the software will get you to clinical efficacy that's current. Okay? So this was the spreadsheet, sort of Lexi. This was everything. So, I mean, it was a complete listing of all of our inventory. And of course, you could sort it by that exceeded our replacement threshold. You could see all the way right there, the scoring and the color, red, green, yellow, where it stood that replacement recommendation. So, and then again, you had a key on top with all of the assessment criteria that I talked about earlier. Here's one thing that we added to this. Did any of you still lease equipment? here's what happens with leased equipment. Sign up for 60-month term on the lease, and then completely forget about it. So you come to the end of that 60-month term, and no one's planned for anything, okay? So, oh crap, what do we do now? Well, I'll tell you what they do now. They extend that existing lease month to month. Here's the problem with that, is you're paying brand new equipment lease prices for 5-year-old equipment. I mean, this is a situation where you are literally flushing money down the drain. Because if you had and you had done an assessment of that equipment, you could make some determination. Is it something that is still viable clinically? Yes. Is it something that isn't a dog from a service perspective? Yes. Okay, well, we want to keep that then. And then you've got a couple of options. The one is to buy out the lease, okay? Because there's no lease that doesn't have, at the end of the lease term, a residual value, okay? And so you can negotiate to buy out that lease. That's one option. The other option is to do a whole new lease, shorter term lease, so it still satisfies requirements. But what you'll find is that you cut your monthly lease costs by anywhere between 30 and 50%. Okay? So again, doing that kind of assessment is critical. It could be something where, you know what, we just want to get rid of this thing. In which case, they take away that lease and you negotiate on getting a new piece of equipment that's on the lease. Okay? So on all of the equipment that was leased, we included this assessment, where it was in the term of the lease, and then we made recommendations on what to do with it. I can't stress enough how important data is before you even get started. You have to have good data if you want to do that. But if you do, you're going to make some big friends. I've never spoken to a CFO that when asked, you know, if you show them the parameters of what they could get with this kind of program, they're like, wait, can't you get that? Like, yeah. You're kidding, right? No. Actually, you gotta want that. I already talked about the easy button, Isabel. So we have this tool, Data Insights. And you know, with the variety of CMSs that we have in the industry, we have 55% smart for that. We've gotten permission to access all of that data, clean and aggregated that data, and can assess your inventory against industry inventory. And first of all, give you a report card, a data report card that shows, you know, what's in your database that's not in alignment with what it should be. We can fill in holes that exist, like, I don't know, acquisition costs, like age, like you know, the replacement, projected replacement date. And so these are the factors that we use. Age of the device versus expected life, age of the device versus backlight. And when I say age of device versus expected life, it isn't using AHA. What it's using is work order history of when people actually retired that what was that length of time, right? And in many cases, it's longer than what AHA says, but in some instances, it's shorter, which you want to know either, right? So it's real information. Age of the model, is it, again, that technology, is it new technology? Is it new in the industry? Is it mainstream, or is it obsolete? Failure rate over the life of the device, recent failure trends, patient risk, so things like recall information, and then the support date from the manufacturer. And then we'll just run this report, and it'll float all of this stuff to the top that we should consider for replacement based on this. And then the latest thing is this asset planner tool, which it'll take those recommendations and plug it into those recommendations. And if you agree with them, you can pull them into your asset plan. But here's the thing too, because you've got visibility over what's coming in the next 5 years, your finance says, you know what, I think I want to sweat that inventory and not replace it this year, replace it the year after that. Well, then they'll have an understanding of what impact that could have, right? From a financial perspective, it's like, oh crap, I already have $50 million planned for that year. I can't do that, right? But again, there's power in knowledge, right? That's it. Questions? Yes, sir.
So, I'd like to kind of put you back on to memory. As the supply chain issues with the product and use the device is something that you've ever considered. I'm going to say, so, like an administrative separate.
In what way?
Well, I mean, it's just totally that certain issues for it's like you just
so I think I've done that as well, and I think having the ability to see what is coming, be able to standardize a specific manufacturing model gives you significant amount of. So if I were that supply chain person, I would say in addition to the demands of this purchase, I want to make sure that I get the consumable make sure that it's no guarantee, not a guarantee. Right? Yes, there's a supply chain issue from China, it's not coming from China. I mean, it is what it is, right? Whereas the purchase
so another question from much earlier presentation is one of the parameters that you mentioned was device utilization. Do you have any tips on that? If they're finding TLS or I don't know what utilization numbers are that it seemed like you were talking more about that.
yeah. So what I'll tell you, it's really easy to just get it from you. Share. Mobile medically equipment. Or what I'm seeing started one or with other questions? Yes, sir.
This is really interesting and some very valuable information. I'm just curious, when you're talking about return on investment, or strictly talking about revenue, I didn't hear you mention anywhere about patient satisfaction, HCAP scores, or even nursing satisfaction, and how that can drive your equipment selections.
Yeah. So when I talk to people about the tool that we talk to them very, very specifically about ROI. Those ROI numbers fall typically in the range of 1,500 to 2,000%. But I have to walk through where those numbers are coming from and get the numbers specifically from the customer so that they understand and agree. So I did talk about time that's spent by very expensive hourly positions to do the capital plan, right? And so part of that is how many people are involved in this, what's their annual, fully burdened with salary. So that's one piece of it. I talked quite a bit about the opportunity to leverage volume of purchases and standardizing equipment. And boy, the numbers there are astronomical. I mean, now you're talking just in one purchase, you could save millions of dollars, right? By having visibility over, you know, how many of these things do I have? Where did they stand in the life cycle? So that, again, going back to the example I cited on the cap, I'm not negotiating one device at one point in time, because what leverage do I have? Whereas if you aggregate the volume of what you have, even if it's over the course of several years, it's huge the dollar savings that you can garner from that.
Remote patient satisfaction.
Yeah, so that is, yeah. Well, I do incorporate that. I will tell you, in all honesty, though, that most finance people look at that as soft. It's less so than it used to be, because HCAP scores impact your reimbursement. So yes, I think that's more. I think that's more relevant than it used to be in the past. But I do include it in the ROI, and then I leave it up to the customer to say, you know, do we include this? Because patient churn is a distinct possibility. Yes.
So it was different.
Yeah.
I can't get this test done. That's the problem. So that can come back around. But it's worth that satisfaction.
Well, I'll tell you something. I had some discussion with finance folks when we talk about and I think our judges might be able to have it certificate now just from the stuff. But I think the greatest battle is to track people interactions and tries to work for them. Because when you do that, now your throughput starts to climb. You can get the same amount of patients throughput with fewer people, fewer bricks and mortar, right? Now you're talking instead of $100,000, millions of dollars. If you save 100%.
Well, I mean, it's safe to say, because the way I also was interpreting this, this is a good tool. For example, when we start planning for the following year, for capital planning or the roadmap, 3 to 5 years, these are some of the decision factors that we need to include. But once we know we have the budget, we have allocated money to replace, 10 ultrasound machines, at that point we combine that, also assuming the request for proposal, right, where a lot of these questions that we talked about could also be covered. Then we may be extending it to a clinical trial, demos, presentations, whatever that may be, where we include that nursing end user component with the patient satisfaction, because we're using it on real patients, and kind of all that goes into the bucket of what that final decision can be. Where some of that is also at the kind of the front end. You want to decide, yes, we need to replace those ultrasound sheets. They meet the criteria, and then we kind of go through all the subsequent steps. Right? I mean, that's,
yeah, absolutely. And I know your background, Isabella, and I was one who talked about the importance of human factors as
Oh,
well.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
told, we don't have to do that. The vendors do that. It's
Yeah.
like, not here, they don't.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got one. You talked about a 7-year purchasing plan for its cat labs. How did you address the technology evolution and search for the 7 years you mentioned to that?
Well, it wasn't 7 years.
Or whatever.
Yeah, so we had 9 labs, and we were planning to replace all of them within, I think it was a 4-year span.
Okay, so that crunched the technology
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. But it's a great point, and
Do you have any
again,
like clauses in there or agreements like technology?
yeah, if it would have extended longer, then it would have included any technology upgrades. I mean, I want to be fair too, right? If it's a significant upgrade, it's a breakthrough technology where the price tag on that thing is going to be $500,000 more. I want our vendors to be profitable as well. Not as profitable as one of them.
But so 20 years, it's still not real time to succeed, it sounds like. So that's good.
Yeah. Any other questions? Let's go have a drink, shall we?
Thank you.
All
Great.
right, thank you.
Oh, crap.